Michael Montero with promoter Tom Loeffler. Tom, you recently tweeted out the odds to the Golovkin-Brook fight, which were a lot closer than some of these other big fights coming up. And these guys, these odds makers, they know what they're saying. So what propelled you to tweet that out?
Well, the odds makers are the experts in boxing. I mean, you can bet against them if you think there's a value on one side or the other side. And these are the closest odds since the Proxa fight that we've had for any of Gennady's fights.
And that was 2013?
That was 2012. Wow. And he's fought some great fights. You know, look, Martin Murray arguably beat Sergio down in Argentina and beat Sturm in Germany. I mean, there's been so many, Daniel Gil, former two-time world champion. David Lemieux, that was a unification fight with another champion. So, for the odds makers, the experts, to view this fight as the most competitive fight, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, there's other great fights, certainly a lot of great fights coming up in the fall, but the point I was trying to make is, of the fights that are already scheduled, this was the closest odds. And, people were kind of blowing it out of proportion about, well, it's a mismatch, it's a welterweight fighting a middleweight. But, when you look at them on the scales, the 30-day weigh-in that was just last week, Kell Brook weighs 11 pounds more. And it wasn't like he was out of shape. It wasn't like he had a big, flabby stomach. He was in shape, solid 176 pounds. And Gennady always walks around close to his, or at least in a training camp, walks around close to his fighting weight. He came in at 165 30 days before his fight at 160 pounds. I mean, any, should I say, normal middleweight champion never is that close to their fighting weight. So it just proves that he's a small middleweight. He has no problem making the weight. He always weighs in 159 pounds. He doesn't struggle to make the weight. So it's much more competitive, I think, than a lot of people look at it just on paper.
Than some of the experts on Twitter were saying, right? So obviously, some of the guys on Twitter were criticizing this fight, comparing it to Canelo Khan. And, I really quickly, I made a video talking about the differences, the nuances between this matchup and the Canelo Khan thing. What would you say are some of the biggest differences between this matchup and that one?
Well, the biggest difference is we tried to make the fight with Canelo. We tried to make the fight with Billy Joe Saunders, undefeated WBO middleweight champion. Tried to make the fight with Eubank Jr., who's, arguably one of the top middleweights in the world. I mean, when you go down the list, and we have the date in London at the O2 Arena. Eddie had the date reserved on Sky Box Office. We had the date reserved on HBO. When you go down the list and you start running out of opponents pretty soon, we give Kell Brook a lot of credit. And I'm not sure when you have two undefeated champions fighting each other. I mean, that's really the goal in the sport of boxing. I mean, Kell might be moving up from welterweight, but look what Ray Leonard did with Hagler. Look Adrian Broner moved up 2 divisions. There's so many examples of a smaller guy moving up and actually being successful. Roy Jones moved up 2 divisions when he beat John Ruiz. I mean, there's a number of examples that we give Kell a lot of credit. I think style-wise, it's going to be a great matchup because Kell brings that speed and look, he doesn't know how to lose. He came over here to the United States, beat Sean Porter. Tremendous fight, and he fights at such a high level as a welterweight. Then you look at the talent in the ring versus what Gennady brings into the ring. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. Now, if for some reason there's an early knockout, look, Gennady's knocked out a bunch of middleweights, early, so you can't criticize it. It's just he's a big puncher, but I expect Kell to bring his A game. He realizes this is the biggest fight of his career. He's definitely motivated for this fight, and I think it's going to be a great show for the fans, not only live in the arena in London, but for the millions of fans who will be watching worldwide.
Earlier on, while we were setting up the presser, you mentioned that you guys had a press conference in London a while back, and that was the first time Gennady's been over there. I don't think a lot of fans knew that. How did the fans receive him when he showed up there at the presser?
Oh, they've been sending me messages about when you're going to bring Triple G to the UK. I mean, we tried to do the fight with Carl Froch over there. It was pretty well documented, the whole process we went through between Billy Joe Saunders, between Eubank, and that's why we really have to give Kell Brook a lot of credit for and Eddie Hearn for putting this fight together. And it's been a tremendous reception when we were there for the press conference, not only for the media, but the fans definitely. I mean, they were following us around, trying to get autographs, even in the cars, trying to follow us to get autographs. So, the UK fans are very knowledgeable fans. They have 17 world champions now over there in the UK. So it's really at a peak for the UK boxing. And I'd have to say Kell Brook is one of their top champions. So for Gennady, this is the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, and another difference that you were asking me about the fight between Canelo and Khan. Gennady, with all of his success and all of his world titles, is willing to travel to the challengers' home country. I mean, you never really see that happening. Yeah. A lot of fighters don't even fight out of their own city, let alone their own country. So
I wonder who you're talking about.
Well, there's a number of examples. I mean, you even look when you had Mishashevsky at the prime of his career, he didn't leave fighting in Germany. So it's not just American fighters I'm referring to, but it's the unique quality for Gennady being at the top of his division and yet still willing to travel to go to the challengers' country. So I think that evens out a lot of the playing field. You got the travel time, you got the jet lag, you got the home field advantage for Brook. He's familiar with with the city and all the different areas or restaurants. I mean, a lot of it plays into it. But Gennady is such a professional. He had so many amateur fights in so many different countries. It doesn't bother him, like he said just now. He's like, it doesn't matter. The ring is 20 by 20. It doesn't matter where it is. It's whether it's a boxing gym, whether it's an arena. Internationally, he just wants to have the fight and wants to have the guy, get in the ring to fight him. So that's the beauty of this promotion.
And speaking of the promotion, we're only talking about the main event. This is a triple header. Chocolatito Gonzalez is moving up in weight again to take on an undefeated tough fighter. Tough fight for him in his first fight at 115. And he's headlining that fight at the Forum here in Los Angeles. Is it kind of part of the business plan to branch Chocolatito off and to get him to headline his own cards from now on?
Well, after looking so spectacularly as the co-feature 3 times to Gennady, I was really, and his ratings definitely justified him getting his own event. His ratings as a co-feature were higher than a lot of main event fighters that we have today. So I was really pushing HBO, pushing my friend Peter Nelson pretty hard that look, Chocolatito deserves his own show, his own main event, and it worked out. It's getting tricky, but it worked out where we're able to give the fans the 2 best pound for pound fighters on the same show once again. This time it's a split site deal where Gennady's headlining the O2 Arena with Brook. But look, Chocolatito earned the right, and like you said, it's the first time on HBO where the fans are actually going to see him as the challenger. Carlos Cuadras, a lot of people might not be familiar with him. A lot of people in America, a lot of the fans weren't familiar with Chocolatito till he debuted on HBO. But he can fight. He's undefeated. He's much bigger physically. If you want to make the comparisons, he's physically much bigger than Chocolatito than Gennady is with Kell Brook. Gennady is only about an inch, maximum inch and a half taller, and when you looked at Chocolatito versus Cuadras, it was about 3 inches difference. I mean, he was towering over him. So look, Chocolatito has his work cut out for him. But that's what really the fans appreciate. 2 undefeated champions fighting against each other. Chocolatito doesn't need tune-up fights to move up to his division. He's fighting an undefeated champion in his first fight up. This will be his 4th weight division. And you got to give Carlos Cuadras a lot of credit too. He could have continued defending his title against other challengers that aren't in the same league that Chocolatito, who's universally considered the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. And then you have the rematch with Kamegai and Soto Karrass.
Right.
I mean, when you have that as a co-feature, it's really adds a lot of value for the fans that want to go down and buy tickets to the Forum or watch it on HBO.
You mentioned keeping the date in September. Canelo Alvarez, the guy that you're kind of chasing around, he also has a date in September. Is the plan to kind of keep pace with him so you can kind of keep the fans buzzing about a potential Triple G Canelo fight?
Well, it worked out that way. The last fight, Gennady fought April 23. It was 2 weeks before the Canelo fight. This time it's 1 week before. It's not by design, but Gennady wants to fight so often. It's always going to be, he's going to be near, somebody's date. So, look, Danny Jacobs is fighting the day before Gennady, September 9th. Gennady fights September 10th, and then Canelo fights September 17th. So it's not that we're chasing Canelo, but it certainly gives the fans a great comparison when you see the guys fighting that close together. And then naturally we'll get asked questions about Canelo. Canelo will get asked questions about Triple G.
Right.
So it keeps that momentum going for when we can actually make the fight.
And one last question. I just want to know if you saw Andre Ward's fight with Alexander Brand and Sergey Kovalev's fight against Isaac Chilemba. You can't talk about Gennady without talking about Andre Ward because you know how these things go. Did you get a chance to see those fights, and how do you see a fight between Kovalev and Ward going should it take place November 19th?
Well, I think that's a great matchup. I think Andre has shown he's proven that he's one of the most talented fighters in the sport. I think when he won the Super 6, it just seemed a little bit more impressive, his victories at that time. But, look, he was off for a long time. Brand, there's another example of Brand was much smaller than Ward. So
I tweeted out a picture of the two of those guys, just comparing the sizes.
It was much smaller. But, look, when you're in a fight like that, maybe he didn't have the same motivation that he's going to have against, clearly fighting Kovalev. And the same thing with Kovalev. Kovalev, probably was in Russia. He had a lot of things going on. When you're fighting in your home country, there's a lot of distractions for friends and family and a lot more media obligations. So, both of them might not have had their best performance in the last fight, but when you match them together, I'm sure both of them are going to be at the top of their game. And you can't that's a great stylistic matchup where Kovalev is such a big puncher, Ward is a master boxer technician. So that's a fight I'm looking forward to as a boxing fans.
But no prediction?
Well, prediction? I would probably lean towards Kovalev only because probably from the outside, maybe controlling the action. We don't know. The only thing with Andre that we haven't seen yet is him fighting a top-level opponent at 175 pounds. That would be the only reason I would lean towards Kovalev, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Ward won a decision. That wouldn't surprise me at all for that fight. I think that's why it makes it an intriguing fight, because it's such a, you probably have 50% of the fans that say Kovalev's going to win, and 50% of the fans saying Ward's going to win. So I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Okay, I lied. One small little question, because I just asked Gennady over there a second ago if he thinks the fight with Canelo is still going to happen next year, as was planned. He said no. He doesn't think it's going to happen for at least 2 more years. What do you think about that fight?
I think it'll happen next year. At least let me rephrase that. I'm hoping it's going to happen next year. I had a lot of discussions with Golden Boy. They're targeting September of next year. We can't predict what's going to happen. Look, Gennady could lose September 10th. Canelo could lose September 17th. It could really sidetrack, this major promotion. That's why from our side, I thought, it's the biggest fight in boxing now. Let's just make it while we can make it. But again, you can't force people into the ring. We're all hopeful it's going to happen in 2017, but you never know what's out there. There might be a new hot fighter that comes up, and all of a sudden, that fight becomes appealing. Zurdo Ramirez is talking about fighting Gennady. That's a great fight for next year. That's a fight that Gennady would move up to 168 pounds. If he wins that fight, then he'd come right back down to 160 pounds and continue to defend his middleweight titles. So there's a lot of interesting fights. You never know. Carl Froch might come out of retirement. Chavez Jr.
DeGale and Jack, the winner of that fight, would you guys consider?
I think both those guys are great fighters. I think both of those would be tremendous matchups for Gennady. It's just we can't move to 168 until there's a fight there that's signed and it's a marketable fight. We tried to do the Chavez Jr. fight before. That never got finalized. But Right now, I think Gennady's in a very good position because he's universally recognized as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. He's clearly one of the most marketable fighters. I think he's one of the universally liked fighters when you can sell out arenas in New York, in LA, in Carson, in London. I mean, that's a testament, especially being from Kazakhstan. That's a testament to fans just appreciating his style in the ring and wanting to support him because he's such a likable guy and such a respectful guy outside the ring. They actually want to cheer for him. So I think that's where you see his universal appeal coming from.
Tom, I appreciate you taking some time and talking to us.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate that.